Hello, and welcome to Interview Tips and Strategies. My name is Erica Coddington. I'm a career counselor and student engagement specialist from Nova Workforce Career Services. In this presentation, we're going to cover the following topics. What is an interview? The different types of interviews to prepare for, specific things you need to do to prepare for the interview, different types of interview questions to anticipate, what to wear to the interview, types of questions that you would want to ask the interviewer, and how to use nonverbal communication effectively. So what is an interview? An interview is a two-way conversation between an employer and an individual to determine a fit between the employer and the interview candidate. It can occur in multiple stages. So you may have a phone interview and then a panel interview, and then you may have another interview with a hiring manager. Sometimes it can go 3 to 6 rounds. It's your opportunity to highlight your best skills and prove to the employer why they should hire you. So the different types of interviews that you will need to prepare for are the phone screen or the phone interview, an in-person or face-to-face interview, the panel interview, and how to prepare yourself for multiple interview rounds, with each one becoming more advanced. So how do you best prepare for an interview? Well, in any kind of interview situation, whether it's a phone interview, a panel interview, or any other interview type of situation, you want to make sure that you research the company beforehand. Get to know their mission statement and how it ties in with your work experience and your unique skill set. So you want to pay attention to the organization's mission statement and philosophy. What kinds of questions should I anticipate? Well, first, you want to think about this one. Describe how your past work experience and education would make you a good fit for the position. So looking back at your resume and looking at all the previous roles that you played in your job, looking at the company mission statement and the position you're applying for, what would make you a good fit? Give an example of how you worked as a team to solve a problem. So, think of a busy office environment where there are a lot of tasks that need to be accomplished and a lot of people that you're going to be communicating with. How did you do that? How did you do that effectively to make sure that you produce the results that were expected? Describe a stressful situation at work and what coping skills you used. So in this question, an employer is asking how you cope with stress and how you work under pressure. Be prepared to speak to how you do that in a work situation, but also what you do in your spare time, be it exercise or meditation, to keep you grounded and stress-free. Describe a situation where a coworker irritated you or a manager made a bad decision and how you handled it. I think there's going to be some variation of a personality type of question where you might have disagreed with a coworker on a situation, or maybe you worked with a team and you ended up doing, the majority of the work and your coworker didn't. How you handled it really speaks to your personality, how you communicated with that person, how you stayed patient, how you stayed persistent and didn't give up. Scenario questions. You've got customers at the front desk. The phone is ringing. You've got a supervisor asking for something that has a deadline of today. You have a coworker that has a question about something. So you have all these things going on at once, and how do you prioritize? That's just an example, but this may vary and be more specific depending on your industry. Do you have any questions for us? So make sure that you do have some questions prepared. We'll go over some later in the presentation, but you want to make sure that you have at least 2 to 3 questions to ask the employer. It shows your level of interest in the company. The phone interview. So this is one of the interview types that employers typically start with. It's becoming more and more common as employers try to screen out candidates and select which ones they want to go further with and bring in for an in-person opportunity. So in the phone interview, you want to make sure that you provide the employer with an accurate number where you can be reached. Typically, the employer is going to send you an email, a hiring manager or somebody from the interview committee that they want to contact you, and they might list some times they have available. So you want to make sure that your contact information is up to date. When you schedule the date of the phone interview, you want to make sure that you're in a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. You want to be prepared at least 15 minutes before the phone call. So you want to make sure that you're situated in that place at least 15 minutes ahead of time, just to kind of get your thoughts together, maybe review any notes, calm yourself down. Find out ahead of time if you need to contact the employer or if the employer will be contacting you. It's not uncommon nowadays with the advancements in technology that we have for employers to send you a calendar invite or a WebEx request, and they may provide, or a Skype contact information, and they may just add it to your calendar. Make sure you're aware of how you're going to be contacted or how you will be contacting the employer, because a lot of times if the expectation is that you contact them, you need to make sure that you're on time with that call-in information. If it's a conference code line, you're expected to be the one that calls them on time and have the technology readily available that you'll be using. Use your nonverbals such as smiling and an upbeat voice to communicate your enthusiasm for the position. And I know this can be challenging under stress, but believe it or not, an employer can really feel through the phone interview if you're excited. Notice as I'm talking now, I'm smiling. You can tell a slight difference in my voice and the inflections compared to if I was just talking in a monotone voice. So just be sure that you maybe practice that ahead of time. You need to work a lot more than nonverbals over the phone because you're not able to communicate that visibly with the employer. So what they're not able to see, you want to make sure that you communicate using your voice and using sound, using your smiling, using that excitement that you normally, the voice that you normally showcase when you're enthusiastic about something. As a general tip, and this isn't required obviously, but dressing professionally may help you to get into a professional mindset for the meeting and also improve your performance. I had a coworker who used to, every time she had a test for a class, she would dress up. She did better and she performed better on her exams when she wore, a professional outfit. So it's just something to think about, not required, but it might just get you into that mindset and help you do better. The panel interview. So it's not uncommon after the phone interview, if you get through to the next process, to have a panel interview with 3 to 5, sometimes even more panel members. And this is where you need to convince the team that you're a good fit for the position, realizing that everybody has different backgrounds and different personalities on that panel. So as a suggestion, if you know the names of the panel members, it'd be a good idea to research information about them ahead of time using LinkedIn or the company website, where you might find information related to a bio or information about their expertise, background, and education. That's going to give you an idea of who you're going to be talking to and maybe some ways that you want to work on your responses. Now, you may not be able to address everybody the same way, but you just want to have that information ahead of time. You might be able to introduce an icebreaker, or when they introduce you, you may be able to bring up a point about one of the panel members. Oh, I understand you have, extensive experience in project management. That's really impressive. Just an icebreaker activity. Be sure to show consistent eye contact with each panel member. So remember, you need to look at each panel member and give each person eye contact throughout the interview. Don't let nonverbals or responses of the panel members distract you. For example, the panel members may be writing down your responses and not giving you eye contact 100% of the time. That's not uncommon. They just want to make sure that they have that information to refer back to when they are going back and reviewing the candidates. Stick to your main message that you are trying to get across, regardless of any distractions in the room. You may find that someone on the panel doesn't give you consistent eye contact, but you want to make sure that you still keep your nonverbals consistent and you keep your message consistent, showcasing your passion for the company and what you know about yourself to be true that makes you a strong candidate for the position based on what they're looking for. If possible, schedule a mock panel interview ahead of time. Contact career services. You might even want to get a group of friends and family members together to ask you some questions just as a way to practice. Most importantly, keep your energy up. This is one of those really intense interview situations where it's not uncommon to be nervous, but as much as possible, show that enthusiasm for the company. That's ultimately going to help you. So as you go through multiple interviews, after the panel interview, you may meet with another person and another person after that. Sometimes these interviews can go beyond 3 rounds. It can sometimes be 5 or 6 rounds. And some of the challenges are interview burnout. You want to make sure that you show consistency in your enthusiasm and energy throughout the entire interview process and through all of the rounds. It's not uncommon to feel exhausted and like you've proven yourself over and over again, but you want to make sure that you keep practicing getting that enthusiasm up. Prepare thoroughly for each step of the process. Never assume or get complacent, and never assume that you're getting the job if you were selected to move to a next round. So don't let overconfidence get in the way. You want to be confident, but you also want to show that you have, a freshness and an enthusiasm for getting into this position, and you kind of want to show that consistency the whole way through, as challenging as that can be. As you progress to the final rounds, prepare for more challenging questions, prepare for more of those scenario situations that they might ask you about, and be ready to show more energy in light of interview burnout. So as you progress through the interview process, you also want to do more research on the company and common terminology and information about how the company was started and the history as you get through more challenging aspects of the interview. But it's also good to have that information on hand at the very beginning, since you never know when along the process you're going to be asked that. But the main point of this is, in light of the fact that you're burned out, make sure you get away from the process, take some time on your own to just reflect and relax and kind of get your mind focused for the next situation. Send a thank you letter after each round, particularly if you're finding that this is something that you really want and you're really enthusiastic about the position. What you want to know about the company. So inevitably, at the end of each interview, they may ask, well, they are going to ask, do you have any questions for us? So some questions that you can ask. What is the next step in the process? When should I follow up? You want to give the employer at least a week, week and a half. If you don't hear anything, it's okay to send an email at that point. But it's okay to say, what is your timeline, so that you kind of get a sense of when you should follow up. What is a typical day like here? Remember, an interview is a two-way street. You want to decide if this is a place where you're going to be happy. So it's good to know what the environment is going to be like, what kind of what the teamwork environment is going to be. So you can decide too if this is a good fit for you. Any questions that you have related to the mission statement of the organization. So if you go back and you research that mission statement and you still have questions, it's not uncommon to ask, how do you all function as a team? Another thing, based on the mission statement and what you all are trying to achieve, what makes you most excited about the job? You really want to get that sense, especially in a panel environment where you have a variety of panelists that you can get that feedback from. That's your opportunity to decide if this is an enthusiastic crew of people. Well, this looks like a place I'd want to join. If you're getting a sense that the energy is really low when you're asking these questions, that might signal to you this may not be a good fit. Avoid asking these interview questions. Can I pick and choose the type of shift I want? Or I only work the day shifts due to an evening commitment, is that okay? Remember, if it's an entry-level position and you're starting brand new with a company, you might have to take whatever shifts are given to you if it's shift work, obviously. What is the salary? You want to wait until after you've received an offer before negotiating any salary figures. What are the vacation benefits like? Again, that's kind of premature. You want to wait until you get the offer letter. And how soon will I start? You don't want to put the cart before the horse. It's okay to ask, what is your timeline? When are you looking to hire someone? But it's not until you get the offer that you would want to ask that question. What should I wear to the interview? For a man, you would want to wear a business suit and tie. For a woman, a business suit or a skirt and a blouse, or a blouse and professional slacks. Make sure that you have your outfit tailored. So if it's a suit, make sure that it fits the way you want it to fit. When you feel comfortable in what you're wearing to the interview, you're going to reflect more confidence. Be sure to dress appropriately, meaning no flip-flops, open-toe shoes. I mean, you want to make sure that your socks are, if you're wearing slacks, that your socks are dark, that they're not two different colors. Again, be sure it's something that you feel comfortable and confident in. For women, avoid wearing heavy makeup. And for men and women, you want to avoid wearing strong perfume or cologne. What you do right before the interview counts. Believe it or not, an employer or the hiring manager or even someone at the front desk when you come in can be watching your every action from the time you arrive to the interview to the time that the interviewer calls you back. So your actions and behavior play an important role from the time you arrive to the site to the time that the employer calls you back. For example, reviewing your resume and your portfolio will generate a more positive response from the employer or from the staff that are working there at the company than viewing and communicating on your Facebook page on your cell phone or your iPad. As a helpful tip when it comes to social media, it is a good idea to shut down or change your Facebook settings during the time period for which you are interviewing. So if you don't shut it down, make sure you adjust your privacy settings to reflect what looks professional and appropriate, what you would be comfortable letting the employer see. And again, make sure it's professional interactions, nothing too casual or social that could raise a red flag. Nonverbal communication. So this is just as important, if not more important, than what you're actually saying during the interview. It's how you're received by the employer when you're demonstrating that enthusiasm and excitement for the job, but also, showing that you're relaxed and confident and striking that balance. So you want to make sure that you maintain eye contact the entire time. Again, if it's a panel interview, you want to show consistent eye contact throughout. Avoid fidgeting and excessive gesturing. Take a position that is not too closed. So you don't want to cross your arms over your chest and cross your legs. That can show an impression of disengagement. So you want to make sure you at least have your arms open and at your sides. Acknowledge the interviewers by a handshake or a nod and a smile before and sometimes after the interview, and you'll kind of get a feel depending on how they're communicating. Show passion and enthusiasm in your responses. Avoid sounding too passive. I recently read an article on Glassdoor.com that talked about, well, if everything goes well in the interview and I give good responses, and I felt like it really went well, but I didn't get called back for a second round or I didn't get selected for the job, what could have gone wrong? And one thing employers reported were the person sounding too passive and not engaged and excited enough. So as much energy as you're putting out there, keep in the back of your mind that sometimes employers can perceive too much passivity. So make sure you keep your energy up consistently throughout the interview and you really maintain why you think you're a good fit for that position and really stay focused on that while showing that enthusiasm. Also, when the interview is over, make sure you kind of get a sense of, what is the next step? When you ask the employer what is the next step, it shows that you're really interested. Give the employer the impression that you are a loyal employee and that you have long-term plans to stay. So for example, if you let the employer know something like, in a year I want to start my own business, well, that could be a red flag to them. Might mean that you're not going to stay with a company very long. Or if you're thinking about moving to another state in a year, you certainly don't want to showcase that or verbalize that in the interview. If you're thinking of pursuing a bachelor's degree and going to school full-time, well, you may not want to be interviewing for full-time jobs. If you let the employer know that, they're automatically going to be concerned that, maybe it's going to be too much on your time and they may not get from you what they need if you're going to school full-time while working a full-time job. Practice, practice, practice. So as a recommendation, schedule a mock interview with a career counselor on campus. You can find information about career services on the NOVA website if you type in career services in the search field, and then it will display all of the locations and contact information for career services at each campus. Brainstorm possible answers to questions in your spare time to help you prepare further. So you may want to create an outline and you may want to study that and create your own little study guide ahead of time. Research possible interview questions and ask your instructor if it's a career development course or it might be an instructor related to your field. Ask them for a handout on this to get some industry-specific questions. Keep in mind that there's going to be general interview questions, but also you're going to be asked a different set of questions in healthcare compared to IT. For example, an employer might ask you about the IT certifications that you have and how you've applied that in an IT position. In a healthcare position, they might ask you, what's your patient care philosophy? Tell me what knowledge of electronic medical record software you have. So remember to do your homework and look at industry-specific interview questions as well as generic ones. If you have any additional questions about interviewing or need additional resources, contact your nearest Nova Career Services Center, which you can find on the Nova website, or you can also email novacareerservices@nvcc.edu.